Hey guys, this is Carl with Gaming on Batteries. We're going to discuss 5 Metroidvania style games you may not know about. Mainly, these are for the Game Boy Advance, so it's not going to be. We're not going to be discussing Nintendo DS, PC, or anything like that. These are going to be just for the Game Boy Advance. So there's 5 of them. Would have chosen 6, but we all know how Nintendo feels about having their titles used in YouTube videos, and so yeah, I had to cut them out. Thanks. Alright, so as you know, this is going to be 5 Game Boy Advance Metroidvania style games. Now these are mainly games that are that feature the obvious, tropes of the genre. I'm not going to go with the easy to, the cop-outs as I call them. So there's not going to be Castlevania anything, Harmony of Distance, Aria of Sorrow, Circle of the Moon. They're not on this list. Neither are Metroid Fusion and Zero Mission. Obviously, that would have been all 5 titles right there. Instead, I'm going to focus on 5 titles that are not well known. A couple of them are licenses and that are well known, somewhat. And the other 3, you just have to find out. All right, we're going to get on with the list now. Thanks for watching. First up, the basics of a Metroidvania style game. First of all, they're going to have large sprawling levels. There's not going to be linear, kind of like a lot of the Nintendo Super Mario Brothers titles are. Sonic the Hedgehog is not included on this list because the levels in those games are not really meant for exploration. They're meant for like speed. I mean, you do find stuff if you explore, but that's not the main point of the game. Next up is an inventory system of some kind. Now, this we're not talking like a Diablo 3 level here where you can craft weapons and all this other stuff. Just you pick up items, you can use items, you can heal, you can things like that. Also, they're going to have a health bar and maybe a magic bar of some sort. Just mainly, it's not going to be like Contra. It's like one hit, one kill type affairs. First up, I got Blackthorn. This is a title that was originally released by Interplay on the Super Nintendo and the Sega 32X. A lot of people watching this probably remember it from one of those releases. If you have a PC and you're a member of Battle.net from Blizzard, you can download, I believe it's still available, a download version of Blackthorn. It's the Super Nintendo version, I believe. It's free. Just make an account on Battle.net and you can download it. It's worth checking out. The Game Boy Advance version it's a lot brighter than the other two those 2 console releases. It's it obviously qualifies as a retro release if you're looking for something that's definitely a retro title on a newer platform. The Blackthorn is a dark adventure. I mean, you can shoot the prisoners, you can kill them. If you don't unequip your weapon and try to talk to a prisoner, you can shoot them, which hopefully you got your information from them first. Basically, the visually, we're talking like animation and such. We're talking something along the lines of Prince of Persia, another classic title. I don't believe that did receive a Game Boy Advance release. I have to look into that. If you're into, it's not really large, super large sprawling levels, but if you're looking for something that's obvious, was made for a console and is now on portable, and has that console feel, then grab Blackthorn. It's fairly cheap. It's not going to set you back too much, and it's still a good game. Next, we got Legend of Spyro, the Eternal Night. For those that don't know, this one was originally a title that was made available on the original PlayStation console back in the 90s. Now, most people know it as the PS1. I like to say PlayStation 1 just to make people mad. But anyway, if you're not familiar with that title, that version of the franchise, it was You play as a dragon, and you're trying to collect the gems and free your friends, and take on all the bad guys, and basically save the world. The Game Boy Advance version is a 2D side scroller that has a lot of the charm of the original, but it's now in a 2D side scrolling action adventure. It does feature large sprawling levels, but it unlike other titles on this list that are much closer to Metroidvania or say Castlevania Symphony of the Night or even Metroid, where those titles used an overall mapping system, and you had to collect certain abilities or weapons in this area, come back to this other area, and go through. Legend of Spyro: The Eternal Night makes use of a hub system, so that instead of having to backtrack through everything, like if you're trying to go from the west side of the map to the east side of the map, you don't have to. In this version of Spyro, you don't have to go through everything in the central part of the map. You can just go back to the hub, maneuver around the hub area, find the level you need to be in, and bam, there you are. A lot of people may not like this. Some people will. To me, it's either or. I mean, it's still the point is the sprawling levels, the varied enemies, and you still end up having to do a lot of backtracking, which is normal for this genre. One thing, the Legend of Spyro, the Eternal Night, excuse me, it has is a lot of dialogue with the bosses and other characters and such. So I mean, it's more of an adventure than an action game. So you're gonna you still have the headbutt, you still have the flames, you have the jumping, you have the slight glide, everything that made Spyro interesting and made Spyro. It's in this Game Boy Advance version. It's just 2D. It's on the go. It's easy to play. I'll have a link in the description below if you want to make a purchase of this title and help me keep making videos like this. Next up, we got Samurai Jack. Now this is based on a cartoon. It's one of the licensed titles I was talking about earlier. As usual, there's a variety of levels here. The game worlds you take on are all different. There's a lot of enemies, and one thing I do not like about this one is the enemies. Once the enemies are on the screen, if you run away and go to another area of the level, those enemies will follow you, which on the one hand is kind of cool. You can't run away from your problems, but on the other hand, this could cause you to put yourself in a situation where you're not going to get out of it very easily. And considering a lot of the enemies fly, it's going to be no problem for them to follow you wherever you go in the level. I do want to point out that the animation for the jump is rather weird. Now, I'm not really a fan of it. I don't understand what's going on there, but I mean, it's just, I mean, I don't know. Just take a look. Look. You'll see. It's off-putting for me. I don't know why. There is a cool combo animation with Samurai Jack, which is pretty cool. The enemies all die, and they don't just blink out of existence. Some will fade, some will fall apart, some will explode, some will have a nice little death animation. So I mean, there is that. I just don't understand why the jumping animation had to be weird. It is what it is, though. Like I said, Samurai Jack does feature a lot of varied levels. They're all large. There are lots of enemies. I mean, be a link in the description below if you want to make a purchase. Alright, next up we got Scorpion King. It's based on the movie starring Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Now watch YouTube pull ads on this video because I use The Rock, and WWE probably has some kind of claim on that. But anyway, like I said, it's based on the movie, which was a spin-off of the Mummy franchise that starred Brendan Fraser and that one hot chick that was his wife, and then the other hot chick that was the bad girl. And yeah. Anyway, the game does feature likenesses of the various people that played the roles in the movie. They're pretty similar. I mean, obviously this is a Game Boy Advance game, so we're not talking like photorealistic here. The sprites are obviously not going to be all that similar to the people played them in the movies, but the character portraits are pretty close. I mean, you can tell that's The Rock. You can tell, each person. We don't get Vivian and the other people from the Mummy series, but we do get the stars from the Scorpion King movie. And one thing I do want to point out is if you have ever seen that episode of G.I. Joe where they took on Cobra, who took over that Egyptian pyramid in the jungle. If you saw that when you were younger, and then that probably had a positive effect on your how you feel about the Egyptian lifestyle, the Egyptian world, at least the classic, what's covered here in the Scorpion King and the Mummy, that whole world. Because for me, that episode of G.I. Joe set me off on pretty much a lifelong interest in Egyptian culture and the history and all that stuff. It was pretty cool. That may be why I like the Scorpion King game so much. Maybe why I like the Mummy series. I haven't seen the third one yet. Has anybody seen that? Is it any good? Anyway, back to the game. Scorpion King does feature a lot of dialogue. So, I mean, if you're not interested in reading a lot, you may want to, well, if you're not interested in reading, why are you looking at these games? Anyway, there is a lot of dialogue. It is pertinent to the game, and there's none of this westernization that companies like Working Designs were unpopularly, I should say, known for. So I mean, it's pretty serious. It takes the storyline serious. It doesn't try to make jokes where jokes shouldn't be. It doesn't make references to politics or anything like that. So I mean, if you want to play a 2D side-scrolling action adventure of huge sprawling levels based on a game based on the Scorpion King, pretty much I think the Game Boy Advance game is the only one that'll offer that. Be a link in the description below if you want to make a purchase. Help me keep making these videos. And if you're enjoying yourself, like, comment, subscribe, share the video. If you're, give it a thumbs up. If you're not liking it, give it a thumbs down. Tell me why. Tell me what's on your mind. Alright, closing out this video, we're going to have Tim Burton's The Nightmare Before Christmas, The Pumpkin King. Yeah, say that, I don't know, 3 times fast. Say it 1 time fast. Anyways, obviously this is based on the hit movie, The Nightmare Before Christmas. It's not strictly based on the movie. It's borrowing the same universe and all that good stuff, but you get the idea. Jack Skellington's here. All the other characters are here in a new adventure. What could fans want more? Visually, this is pretty close to the movie. I mean, or what you would think the movie would be if it was a cartoony, Game Boy Advance game. This is nothing like how what we had to deal with back in the Nintendo days, like Rambo and Total Recall or Terminator. When those movies were converted over to a video game, and it was just horrible. Total Recall, the fight with his wife. I mean, that just turned into a royal mess. Like, who remembers the scene where he was jumping through the back alley and beating up bums and fighting enemy soldiers and stuff in Total Recall? Yeah, it never happened, but it happened in the game. And there's when Jack Skellington is jumping up from hanging off a ledge, he just had this weird backflip animation, kind of like what Lara Croft had in the Tomb Raider games. Except there it looked realistic. Here it just looks like, what in the world just happened? That's what it looks like. There are some cool little animations in the background. I mean, for the most part it is devoid of animation, but when there is animation in the background, it is kind of cool. Like skeletons have flickering candles. Excuse me. And skeletons have flickering candles in their mouths and things, and the radiance grows and dims. I mean, it's a nice little touch. I mean, it's nothing major. there's a lot of different enemies, like green plant-looking things, and the like. I mean, it's been a while since I've seen the movie, so I don't remember if any of these enemies that are in the game are from the movie. So you have to forgive me on that one. In between some of the levels, there is a forced into the screen scrolling mini game to break up the 2D side-scrolling action. The best I can think of is like comparing these mini game levels to something like Space Harrier, where you got to move up and down, left and right on the screen to avoid obstacles, and they're just there to mainly break up the monotony. One thing Nightmare Before Christmas does have in spades over the other titles in this list is the bosses. Some of the bosses are huge. Like there's a snake boss that takes he pretty much wraps himself around both sides of the screen and then brings his head in from the left and the right. Excuse me, from the left and the right. And other bosses are smaller, but they're extremely well animated, and they look a lot like the characters they're based on from the movie. But the biggest thing is these bosses all have that 16-bit feel. They have that pattern, that classic pattern that retro gamers are going to recognize as they play. Kind of like a Cuphead, that newer title that came out about a year ago or so. It had the bosses are huge. It's but they all have that classic pattern feel to them. If you can survive long enough to recognize the pattern, then you can dial them in. Same thing here with the Nightmare Before Christmas. The bosses all have that classic pattern feel, so once you dial them in, you can pretty much take them down. The trick is obviously surviving long enough to learn that pattern to take them down. There you go. That's 5 Game Boy Advance Metroidvania style games you may not know about. If you like this video, like, comment, share, thumbs up, thumbs down, whatever. I don't care. Interactions, what Google and YouTube want. Basically, let me know if you like these type of videos. I'll keep making them. If you don't, let me know. Let me know what's wrong. I mean, is my voice too annoying? Probably is. Again, I don't care. Maybe I'm off on something. Maybe you want more details about the games. Let me know in the comments below, or make a reaction video and tag me in it. That's always fun too. I can check out your channel. Might subscribe.